So here's a good one. So like I said, this is not high standards. This is not high stakes stock trading. I'm not looking for the Olympian to make the highest count off of here. Realistically, I'm looking at the smallest particle I can, just one. And inside here, I'm tracking it on a wave function to assert a pattern, 2. Anytime this set determines any kind of reciprocals on stacked ax or xy or x plus y prime, because that's what this would be, 2 on a 3 on a 4 before I get into 3 and 4 dimensional objects, which get crazy. And this being that you need it to be this because this is 1-dimensional, 2-dimensional, and the way wave functions work, because we're going to get into the 36, 50, 37 peak 5-day on this off of it dropping or being reclassed or having some sets of just readjusting right now. This is quantifiable by the first of the year. You need a couple of years to start it rerunning again based on a set. So, but there I was. I think I was set back in, no, not there. Maybe like here, right? So, she went in hard. Just hammer. All right, fine. And here I said, like, okay, maybe turn the choices go. But that's what you get to learn here, right? See that wave function? So where does that put me next time? Definitely down here. She's been running pretty solid on those numbers over observations of days, me checking this. And knowing my original position, checking that, I've got to see the operation in wave function that allows me to kind of build a pattern for how I expect AEO to work, regardless of its position or platform. And, as you boot barn that thing, study this every day, give it the weekly, the monthlies, build your own on those. You'll find a more common reciprocal for that set that is highly precise to any kind of wave functions that you would base into your standard model, right? Because these are the elements that I'm shooting down the function against each other later on, because it's not this stock, but how this stock operates in its X form, right? Because then that's going to come around and I'm going to follow that common pattern, run it down to a set, some points in a boot barn about this specific wave function that gives me this, because I'll be able to observe that and I'll be able to understand that at some point in time, but also some functional model will be able to track that for sure, not just some eyeball loose number of years. Now, I'll give you the fact that that's a code number that's really important and generally why I keep it in a ledger, right? Because even though it's in a ledger, it can be cracked. Anything can be cracked, but it's real close to chest, and it's not digital by any standards of it. Well, the result remains digital because I would be using this platform to make that wave function. Now, of course, if you track me long enough or the Enigma, you're going to figure out that this is doable, Cicada. It's not necessarily a big differential in programming that number off in Excel that makes it its own autonomous system, just susceptible to the hacking platform at this point in time in physics, given other common reciprocals that may be coming up relative to these kinds of functions. So this is what I got coming through the signal today. And so you teach them on that, you train them on that, you say this is a common science on that thing. If you mess this up, it's because you physically did not do this. And if you did not do this, to be the Olympian across here, being able to do this would say that's exactly. And this is kind of that indicator. Well, this is an indicator of also dark matter and dark energy, of building equity to a certain degree, turning that into a company, XY stuff on turning that over, because those are what give you the generated funds. If you're just using this, then you're really susceptible to other functions that start to take away from this, or why you would be doing on an anti-up, anti-telephone, 0-1 singlet state, north-south crystals, not anti-up directly, but they can certainly be energetic in such a form. And they can be quantified here. But this is a pretty erratic number where you would have to base this to hydrogen and redo the reactions, which is a substate of their anything that's on the stock market, the ground topology, where they get resources, the farms under that standard. And it'll be pretty comprehensive, but it's 8-bit 42, right? So that gives you a pattern you can kind of follow if you know what you're doing with it. And again, the breadboard of Ben Eater is going to give you that. This is the battery right now. It doesn't look like photons moving around, but we're in time space, right? We're in that time space down here in the quadrant on the chessboard where it says, this is my time to observe it. I could be checking YouTube. the value on both of those may be up. But because I'm doing it in this value here as high probability to the math function because it's highly resonant or it enriches that material by testing a lot more frequently, certainly lead to the end result where this is functionable. And so they begin to break these wave functions down for you. Over the period, being that started to increase a little bit more, can I still follow that function, or is that an anti-telephone position? What would be determining that inverted by shadow positions? And that's a challenge, man. You dig in some marshmallows, man. Grab a photon, put it in the bucket by skills to program some 3D engine generator here where you can spin around the axis, kind of determine what north is by scales, X and Y and stuff. And those would be the measurements, and that's kind of some gravity. If I did that and algebraically knew that I couldn't arbitrarily use that algebra, but I could use that base source code or function to kind of like this window to understand stocks next time as a general whole. And as the pattern that says Ben Eater here, I'm going to give you Schroesringer just right now is arbitrary. I don't know what practice you would do, but I had one that I use when I go to show you that. So that's going to enrich this even more and become more valuable to you, even though you may or may not have any money on it. So even though I wasn't up here, I knew enough that the wave function should hold over at least to one of these peaks. So if I wanted to sell out, I could. It should go up from here, given the standard model of other reciprocals, down, up. Stocks usually go down and up. They hold 2 down days, 3 down days, 5 down days, or there's something wrong with the business that indicates some 42-year track that piles this up on energy, pushes that line back, and sends this up, where normally a straight line of business is a product line, generally ground. People are going to sell out. It's not making no new noise. It's not in terms of a business. It's product line is out of season on cyclicals. Start pens rowing over on this by engineer graphing, because those would be the math problems I teach you to take this all in causally at once. Now I could get back out of that, but that's 3 spikes across the board on an AEO, but it's never really spiked up past a lot of this. Any of these businesses would be generally at their peak, at least right now, or why would they be down after a long season, finally put a commercial out and have it a big SPAC? I'm not going to be set up for the camp time. I'm compressed. I just saw the commercial. I don't know where, why, and how, but generally I'd assume I'd be the first or I'd be the very last. And if I've seen it multiple times, I know I couldn't be the first. So I would guess to the commercial, still hot, still new, watch the track, there might be an up on that. And if you notice something early into the commercial and you'd seen some early sets inside of here, you would say that's probably a good value to put into there, add a little bit to their team so they can figure out what's here. I'll gain when that starts to go down. I can get out a little bit for a 10% off of certain sets, and the difference is a timeline, not necessarily an angle here. A delta B hedging bets under the curve. Those numbers are important, but like I said, from here, weights and plates. Now that might change this indicator, but let's take a look at what happened here. Let's take a look at the big institutional buys and sells. Everything down here is going to be macro. There might be a lot of it, but it takes a long time of those. 1, a physical causal limit the process, and 2, inside of there, the rate in which that volume is going to differentiate off of values that are set inside here, automated to program into that. And then obviously some big drops inside of here, a weekend turn on Friday or something where somebody turned out on it, and then the rest of the macro dumped down on it. But obviously that is where you want to be living. Then that kind of normal back up in the morning. That looked like that morning on Monday, she turned up real good. And if you would want to be there anywhere, first thing in the morning, crack good dawn 9:30, and that's going to give you another wave indicator that says, well, let's look at where anything else is doing that. Here might be, part of the morning, a couple hours for sure right there, but I'm not really paying attention to this. I think that's about a day, right? Or that's the weekend. Yeah, that's the weekend turn. That's why. And you're going to begin to see those dips and turns inside of this. And maybe that's the angle you're looking at for why this is this based on some dip. But to compress it off of the day doesn't really much matter. I'm just trying to say out there, macro it and kind of catch it on the micro. And I might even do that long term if there's a wave operator that functions some rogue inside of there that really dumps on, why it was so negative on the backside. Because like I said, that'll be an inverted problem of why that started dumped down by some shadow points that'll probably 42 for you if you're key searching it at least. Got to put the things to it. You got to Ben Eater this thing and go, get the compass, the ruler, the plumb bob out on this, get it swinging, All right. But again, as you continue that, you could, Bank of America was low. They caught a big hit. Probably dumped off. If I was paying attention to the click, probably should have turned over on that. If it dumped, I would have been watching it from the set. She's still on the climb. When they said Bank of America was a hit, I was like, it's a business. It'll be a business when it's a business. And I think it was a few days ago, looking for anything dramatic inside of here. Or any kind of big turn that said it was off the bottom but still didn't have any noise, and then bank it back up, be a good stock or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what happened. They might have just stood on the throttle the whole way through if anybody bumped out of there or something. It's on the 5-day. Like, probably there. Was that yesterday or the day before? Something like that. You would expect to have a bump. I don't exactly remember when it was. I don't think it was 5 days ago. Maybe that bad puppy right there. I don't know. Looks like a morning turn or something. Could have been the day after into the morning, reset it, and then give it some good news or something like that. I think it was the other day. That would have been yesterday. It should come up high. They hammered on it, weighed some plates, put it back down. Or whatever. Maybe that's an operator. Can I test that later based on specs and positions and testing 42? Highly probably. More than likely you're going to forget about it because you didn't leisure it right here and kind of write that note to stay on momentum of that divergent flow system and it just came. More than likely. That's why I say it on the landscapers bids. Gravity is what gives you a lot of standardization, especially when you don't understand this math problem fully. It's good to get on there until you're ready to get out of it. That really says, and the only way to get out of it is to fully understand it anyways. Because if you didn't get that, you wouldn't know the points that really made you too good where you could hand it off, keep that business going to be able to actually leave to get to another one without this one falling apart. And the fact that it falls apart after you leave kind of says something about what indicators on physics were fully masked by your understanding in that training leisure. Those tracks, independently, they collapse all down. You take every field theory until it's like which parts of which field theory are most useful to really discern what I perceive the human element to be. And, when I'm looking at somebody, it's like, well, that's what the human element spectrum of Dave, sure. We click in the north, Dave, Larry, whoever, they're the same thing by X when you start painting around this in the 3D engine. At any rate, where was I? I'm getting off track here. Well, if anything, that should get you rolling real good. So, in a way, this is somebody's business, right? This is a portfolio manager. So, it's going to become Rock, Oak Ridge, IKEA Kunin. Like, how do I build GPT-3? Make me a master mason. Catch you on the next one.